Good afternoon. Welcome to the Jaybe show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. Today is September 15th, 2024. And just to let you guys know, if you have not already, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Revolutionary Blackout Network. This helps us out so that we can be able to reach more people, so we can get the message out there, as well as encourage more people to get active. So thank you very much for that. If you have not already, you can join our mailing list so that you can get notified whenever we upload clips or go live at revolutionaryblackout.substack.com. So you guys have that there as well. And anyone who wishes to reach out to us for any words of encouragement or any stories that you like to talk about, any just information that you would like to submit to us, serious inquiries only, but you can go to revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com. So you guys have that there as well. Thank you so very much to everybody that is joining right now for this stream. And a blanket hello to everybody that's in the chat that is joining us today. But what are we talking about today? Well, let's get into this thumbnail. So we're going to be talking about, later in the show, we're going to be talking about lynching in 2024. We're going to be talking about what happened to Javion Magee. This is a story that really needs to get more national attention. So we're going to be talking about that. It's going to be a heavy subject, but we need to get into it because, well, as Black people, especially a lot of us Black men, we are still an endangered species in this nation. A little bit later, we're going to be talking about lousy Lindsey Graham and his pushing for corruption. So what is going up with Lindsey Graham and the Federal Election Commission? But right now, I have joining me activist and advocate and the angry socialist joining me for this show. We're going to be talking about all things electoral politics and organizing. Here joining me right now, we have the angry socialist. Good to see you, brother.
Yeah, sociologist, but it's all good. Everybody says socialist today. I am one, but
sociologist.
Yeah, it's all good. Yeah. It's all good. Just for the people know, you can just call me Tory, though. That works just fine. Tory Brown.
Tory, all right. Thank you very much for joining, Tory. One of the things that I actually wanted to talk to you about is, were you able to catch the debates last week between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump?
Yeah, so I didn't watch it full out. I don't think I could brought myself to do that too often, but I did. I was able to catch, a lot of the clips and I guess whatever the highlights from the debate were, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I just wanted to get your thoughts on some of what was said during the debates, first off, and, do you think that there's any type of shift in focus or any decisions were made to support either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump? And based on what policies do you think it may have shifted the focus in some undecided voters' minds?
Yeah. So I don't know if it shifted so much between people who were, I don't know how many people are actually deciding between Kamala Harris and Trump per se. It may have shifted some people that thought, oh man, I might vote for Kamala. Now I might say, I don't know if I want to do that or not. And the reason why I probably think that is because you see in the language and the rhetoric that existed in the debate, and also kind of what we've seen really blanketly these last couple of weeks or pretty much longer, is this kind of catering to what would be the responsible or conservative, right? The conservative who doesn't necessarily feel aligned with what people see as inflammatory rhetoric from Trump and Vance and those kind of people. But you see, I guess, Kamala and those folks kind of trying to cater to those particular people, talking about the border in such a way, right? Where we just went from a couple of years ago where everybody was caring about kids in cages and, even conversations among the squad about abolishing ICE. Now we have folks literally talking about how who's going to have the stronger border type policy and the criminalization of, immigrant people, right? Without talking about the context of what causes these mass immigrations, right? And the trade policies, the economic policies of both the Democratic and Republican Party. So I don't know, like I said, I don't think Kamala shifted anybody over to Trump, and I don't think Trump necessarily, maybe he did switch some people over to Kamala, but it definitely seems as if they're taking the old school Hillary Clinton route in 2016 by trying to cater to this particular base of people that they may or may not get support. Obama, I felt like, was one of the few people that was able to get that kind of responsible conservative population, right? And you can see what did that do? It helped neoliberalism come in pretty much unchallenged from anybody on the quote unquote left. So yeah, like I said, I don't think the debate swung too many people, but I think it showed that, this idea that we're going to pull Kamala to the left is becoming probably pretty unrealistic for the folks that believed it, because she's, digging her feet in and saying, look, we're actually catering to the right, and even running to the right on Trump and a lot of things, even when we think about their approach to military and foreign policy, for sure.
True. Were you able to catch the Breakfast Club interview between Dr. Joe Stein and Dr.
Yeah. So in the same way, I haven't watched it full out all the way through. I have probably seen some of the more viral clips about what went on in those kind of conversations. I saw Angela. I can't remember.
Angela Rye.
Angela Rye.
Like my bread, Angela Rye.
Okay, Rye. Yeah, I saw Angela Rye in the kind of classic Black liberal elite kind of tactics of trying to punch from the left, but I think a lot of folks were able to see, and even in the clips I was able to watch, I think a lot of people recognized the BS that was going on there, the contradictions, and essentially the only argument I saw was like, well, we're more powerful because we're able to get elected. Well, you're able to get elected because you have the power and interests of the ruling elite that want you to get elected, because you're going to pass particular policies that aren't threatening to their actual power, and in most cases quite beneficial to it.
Damn. Well, no wonder why Dr. CB has recommended you. That was a really eloquent point, way more eloquent than I could ever, put out there. And thank you very much for that. One of the things that I noticed, and in fact, I really should actually just show this, was there's a particular uptick in different people within the Democratic Party that seem to have, it feels as if they got a notice or a memo, and they said, you know what, you guys really should start going after anybody that's supporting third parties, particularly the Green Party and Dr. Jill Stein. So is this any surprise to you, or is this in your analysis over the years, have you ever seen an uptick like this after third parties, in particular the Green Party?
Yeah, no, I haven't really. I definitely see the uptick, right? I definitely think the emails went out. Whoever the handlers over the Democratic establishment, somebody was definitely alarmed by, I think, the traction that Jill Stein was able to get through going on this national platform of the Breakfast Club and really talking about those kind of things. And I definitely think that, folks are nervous. I don't know what the internal polling looks like. I don't get too deep into the actual political strategies and those kind of things. But what I did see was they were pulling out their most quote unquote progressive figures within the party, actual politicians. If we're thinking about Keith Ellison, AOC, right? Everybody's kind of making. I haven't seen Keith Ellison in like 30 years. Like, I'm just surprised. He just popped up out of nowhere. It's like, hey, you know what? Guess what? Jill Stein.
Like, brother, you still alive?
Yeah, I'm just like, bro. Like, where have you been all this time? When you were actually trying to, run as a quote unquote progressive and all this stuff, and was actually received some attacks from within your own party. Now has obviously, fully embraced this idea that, that's a role. I argue that, people like AOC, the squad, particularly the squad that stuck around over this last kind of wave of being AIPAC kind of rushing out the other ones. is really, again, this kind of controlled opposition. It is really to keep any kind of, they're supposed to be the realistic, quote unquote, leftist, and anybody to the left of that is unrealistic, can't accomplish anything, isn't grounded in any kind of reality. And as long as they're able to establish that, then folks won't actually, take those things seriously. But what I think now is that because you're offering people absolutely nothing other than fear mongering, right? Because you're offering people nothing, they're going to look to you only can scare people for so long. And I think that now you are seeing a traction of people looking to other places for answers. Unfortunately, some places that has been further to the right. You do see maybe some folks, adopting whatever they feel like towards Trump or something like that, because they're looking for an answer that isn't within the Democratic establishment, right? But what's actually more threatening to ruling class power would be, again, those people moving to the left and finding that, hey, there are some people talking about these particular issues in a different kind of way, and also pointing out some contradictions that I felt have been true for a long time. I'm putting my voice into those kind of people. And I definitely think you see that manifesting. So now you have the alarms are ringing. Now we need to create the influencers and the politicians and everybody else. They can't critique the actual policy, but their goal is to make it illegitimate because it's not realistic within the processes of the dominant, I guess the better word, bourgeois electoral politics.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, they sent an actor after us. Did you know that? They sent an actor. So I'm going to share with you the video that the actor responded to, which was a video of Rome. And then I'll show you what this particular actor said. So here's what Rome said. I'm not going to play the entire thing, but I just want to play some of it. And this caption says, "Attack on the Green Party."
AOC and the Democratic Party is currently trying to use projection as a weapon to attack Dr. Jill Stein and the Green Party. And yes, I said projection because one of their main talking points is, how come you always come out every 4 years, even though she didn't run 4 years ago? How come you only come out every 4 years to run for the president? And isn't that exactly what Democrats and Republicans do? Isn't that exactly what they do? They run for office. We get them in power and they ignore us for those 4 years and then run again. We get them back in power and then they ignore us for 4 more years until they want to put their best friend up to the bat next. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys are old enough to remember when Obama said this. I remember Joe Biden even running on it. And now you have Kamala Harris running on the same exact policy that they promised you, not 4, not 8, but for 51 years. 51 years, and they still haven't got this passed. And I know your guys go to, it's the House, it's the Senate. They can't get past these people because they're sexist, they're racist. Why are they running on policies that they know would never get past these people? Are they lying to you? Now, a great handful of these policies that they are running on, they could just pass with an executive order with the swipe of a pen, but come on now. But let's be honest. If they really wanted you to have it, they would just bypass Congress, right? Because it's not like we haven't seen nothing like that before.
So when it comes to that, I'm setting this up to share that this is, oh my goodness, did it actually? Wait, hold on. I'm going to have to go back to it. For some reason, it won't show. For some reason, it won't show from mine. I'm going to have to go on to, sorry. It was the actor Wendell Pierce, actually.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not surprised. I'm familiar with his participation in certain things.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to share what he said. For some reason, it's not showing up on my end, but there's a way around that. Let me see. Here we go. All right. So here we go. Okay, I got it up because for some reason, Wendell Pierce decided to come on ours out of nowhere. And he says, wrong. The Democratic Party runs candidates in every election, local, state, and federal. The question is valid because the Green Party makes no effort to build its party besides playing spoiler. Why isn't Jill Stein contesting the GOP? It only appears that they attack the Democratic Party. Understanding politics, it becomes suspicious that your agenda is only a ploy to be obstructive for our campaign. What did Wendell Pierce get wrong here?
Well, I mean, I think for one, he thinks that the Green Party only pops up every 4 years. So you can obviously look and disprove that quite regularly. I mean, you can look at any of the factions within Georgia or other places where the party exists. It's not every 4 years. Jill Stein obviously didn't even run in the last 4 years ago. So, I mean, it's just flat out disinformation when it comes to that particular type of thing. I think one of the things that really gets lost in a lot of these conversations about like, why isn't the Green Party more viable in sense of like on the political scene is you have to recognize that the Democratic Party literally tries to get them by suing, by getting policies and laws changed as far as trying to get onto the ballot. You know, I worked with the Workers' World Party back in 2016, trying to get Monica Moorhead and Lamont Lilly on the ballot across different states. And then just the rules that differ from state to state, right? In like North Carolina, you had to have X amount of signatures through each one of the counties. And then it was the process in itself. And again, this is not a process that is just, uniform or, lasting forever. It changes. And the Democratic Party actively tries to change it to keep people like the Green Party off of certain kind of tickets. And again, that conversation never gets brought forth, right? Or the idea that it's the responsibility of the Green Party not to spoil the quote unquote election for the Democrats. It's something that we've been cultivating over maybe longer than that, but I feel like there's been this idea that it is the responsibility of the people to elect certain candidates rather than the candidate themselves or the political parties they represent actually accrue those certain amount of votes, right? Because it's like the idea that, again, the Green Party spoiled the 2016 election, which is the assumption that the people who voted Green would automatically vote for Hillary Clinton. That is not the case, right? Those people probably just would not vote. You're not owed those particular people vote. So even when the conversations of people like Wendell and stuff like that, they really just don't get account for that. And they also don't account for the fact that, again, the Democratic Party only shows up every 4 years to have the conversation, right? And whenever folks want to call them on the promises between their only excuse is, well, you don't know how politics work. Those kind of things, or keep on, just believe us. You got to vote a little bit more and these things will particularly happen. But that's what I think he obviously misses in his kind of analysis, if you want to call it that, about the Green Party.
Yeah, it's funny because he never looked into the fact that I think it was in Massachusetts, Terrence Cudney was running in an not off election year, but he was running in a midterm election. Yeah, Delilah Barrios that was running for Texas governor under the Green Party in a in an off election year back in 2022, in a midterm election year. You had oh my goodness, I'm blanking on his name, Matthew Ho, who was running also in 2022 in a midterm election year in the Green Party for Senate, right? You had Thomas Wakely, right? You also had you had people who were running for city council. You had people running for school board. You have all these different people running, and yet somebody, like Wendell is like, oh, they only run a presidential candidate every 4 years. My question is, Wendell, why don't you do research like you're doing a role? Why not look into it? And that's one of the things that annoys me. But the thing is that they know this. They just have to lie in order to make people feel like they're being, played. The reason why is because this is why Rome was right. It is pure projection, because the people who come out every 4 years are the Democratic Party. And then they will make these promises. And then once these promises are not fulfilled, then, you just got to keep voting for us in order to be able to get it. And the crazy part is, and you made this point on Twitter, is that they're rolling out all the progressives. It's not Joe Manchin coming out after us, right? It's not Kristen Sinema. It's not Henry Cuellar. It's not the right-wing blue dogs. It's actually the progressives. They brought out what? AOC? Mark my words. Bernie's going to say something. Bernie's going to come out and say something. And guess what? It's not going to have the effect that they think it's going to.
Yeah. I think, again, this. I mean, some of us, I've been posting some of the tweets that I've had for years ago about, AOC and a couple other people, and folks thinking I'm a fortune teller, and I'm not. It's just literally, and I wasn't the only one making these kind of statements. I think the late great Bruce Dixon, who used to write for Black Agenda Report, really did a good job of talking about, kind of how this ilk of people and their role is in, trying to make sure or capture this kind of more radical energy that's coming off of, right? I was 21 when Obama first got elected in 2008. I was in college, right, and was super like anybody else. I'm knee deep in it. I'm like, oh man, Obama, the greatest thing ever. He's talking about, ending wars and and that. And he's also making me feel good about my own inferiority next to blackness, right? Here's a living, breathing rejection to all the stereotypes, right? And all that stuff that wrapped up in it. But again, as I grew and really wanted to commit myself to understanding the truth around particular social problems, I saw that the things that you talked about and the actions that you actually did were quite different. Right. And the contradictions became quite clear depending on whatever issue. And I think for masses of folks, particularly if you think about 2013, 2014, right. Again, that's still in my quote unquote youth. A lot of us saw these massive contradiction around policing and saw kind of his response and the Democratic Party's response of not being able to really address these things, even though you've talked about them and used them as election talking points for several years. Right. And as people constantly see those contradictions, you have to have some kind of new energy to keep people within the fold. And that's where I think this progressive, quote unquote, class of politicians exists from. Now, some may be more committed to the truth than others. And you see, maybe that's why they're no longer members of said, of the squad or whatever that they may be. But for those people, those particular folks, their job is to delegitimize more left things, right? And then also kind of capture that energy of folks who may be seeing these contradictions and trying to pull them into the Democratic Party to, hey, we're working on these type of things, right? AOC is the perfect example. Look at how she played with Medicare for all, right? When folks wanted to force the vote back in, what was that, a couple of years ago, her objection to that was like, oh, we need to stick to the process and this and this and that, right? She was literally punching left because folks were asking for something that you claim to be about from the get-go. And so you can continually see this type of thing going on because the contradictions aren't going away, right? Yeah. The economy is not going to get better for every poor and working class people. So they're going to continue to face those kind of things. And they're going to look to try to figure out, well, why isn't the stuff that you claim to be doing, why isn't it working? Right. And maybe there is another pathway forward, or these people are talking about this thing in a different type of way, and they're going to be pulled towards that.
Yeah, it's funny because a lot of these people who are progressive, to me, party matters more than policy for them. Because if you're actually a progressive and if policy matters more, then even if I was in the Democratic Party, I would still go with somebody who's in the Green Party or somebody who's running outside of the duopoly if they have better policies than somebody who's in the Democratic Party. For instance, if I were AOC, and if I was really about the policies that I espouse, then I would honestly start endorsing people who are outside the duopoly. And it also rings true of if you are actually about democracy, then you want that to grow. So if you want there to be not just two parties in the, have a two-party system, you want it to be multi-party system, then why not encourage people to vote their conscience instead of going after a particular third-party candidate? And this also goes out to people like Keith Ellison. Keith Ellison said this. He said, if you've ever been annoyed by politicians who only show up at election time, then you've got to be annoyed with Dr. Joe Stein. She claims to be an unconventional alternative, but she's nauseatingly conventional. She shows up every 4 years making lavish promises, but has no record of producing anything except Republican victories, hard pass. My question to Keith Ellison is, well, you are the same person that Keith Ellison was the same person that stood behind a man that ran in 2016 and 2020, making these same lavish promises, and yet he stood behind him. Wasn't Keith Ellison all for Bernie Sanders? And didn't Bernie Sanders get a lot of his ideas from the Green Party, especially the Green New Deal? So my question to Keith is, what are you doing? And I basically said that Keith Ellison is projecting with this whole, they run every 4 years. And I said, Keith is projecting here, but I get it. You feel threatened by the people who will actually fight. Keith Ellison decided to respond back to me. He said, let's talk, sir. Outside of election season, what is her record of achievement on climate, healthcare, access, and affordability, criminal justice, or whatever? No need to insult or divert. Hang on. Let me ask you guys, when do I ever insult or divert? That's not me. I'm a grown-ass man. I'm 40 years old. I ain't got no time to play. Okay? I'm not going to insult, because the thing is like, I ruin my argument by doing so. Anyway, just answer a simple question. You don't need to be in office to do big things. What's her record? Now, her record is pretty extensive, but he's not interested in that. So I responded to him because he tried to divert the attention away. And so I said, are you really trying to defend a party that's committing a genocide and is building cop cities all over the country, which will harm Black people disproportionately? Are you really trying to defend a party that has no real Black agenda besides putting Black faces in high places, but then tells us working and poor Black folks to piss off after every election? Are you defending a party that's essentially had no primary this year and basically coronated a cop that has transgressed against the Black community as Attorney General? Really, Keith? Keith has not responded since. Was it something I said? And the thing is that this is not more or less a defense of the Green Party, because the Green Party has issues too, right? Nobody's perfect. But the thing is that what I'm upset about, not upset, what I'm irritated about is the projection by the Democratic Party. When somebody actually wants to do progress, they stand in the way of it. But then when they want to do progress, oh, well, the Republicans are in our way. And I'm like, wait a minute, are you for progress or are you against progress? Because it seems to me whenever somebody actually really progressive comes and shows y'all up, oh my God, they're horrible. But it's like, wait, look at the policies. What are they for? Oh, look, I'm going to say this. A lot of independent and third-party candidates are what the Progressive Caucus wishes they were. I mean, does it feel that way to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Honestly, you know, my feeling is, well, my understanding, right? I look at this thing from a structural level. Who do they answer to? Right? Who does the Democratic Party answer to? Who does the Republican Party answer to? And both parties answer to capital, right? Capital dictates. When I say capital, I'm talking about the people who own corporations, right? Who control the forces in our society, right? I'm talking about the people, the board of directors at the Vanguard Group and BlackRock and Blackstone and State Street. Probably the people I should not mention, because those are the people who hold real power in our society, right? And when you think about that, when you do have folks who have a policy that does really essentially challenge those interests, for example, if you wanted to have Medicare for all and get rid of private health insurance companies, well, the people who make billions of dollars off of private health insurance probably are not going to be too happy about that. And they probably donated a significant amount of money to some particular candidates, if not all, to make sure that that doesn't happen. So if I gave you $3 million, either directly or through some kind of PAC, to run as a certain candidate, you're going to answer to those $3 million I gave to you, whether 3 million people disagree with that or not, right? And your job is to dress that up to in such a way that they don't really question it, because I've paid you money to essentially fool these people into thinking that you're on their side when you're actually on mine. Right. And I think that that's the power of the political duopoly. It gives these people, it gives folks villains. Right. So if you want to be contained within the Democratic side, all Republicans are the villain for you. If you want to contain people within the Republican side, then all these liberals are again, the enemy or the cause or the source of the particular problem. And again, it obscures who's actually benefiting from these type of things, right? Who at the end of the day is benefiting from us not having universal health care? Who is benefiting or who is advantaged by us not being able to afford rent, mortgage, other things like that? Who is advantaged by these particular things? Who's advantaged by the fact that we have certain kind of laws, right? Criminalizing marijuana and other things of that nature. And when you ask these particular questions, right, that's why if you can answer in such a way that fools people into believing that they have to support this particular political party, if you can do that successfully, then you're going to make a lot of money and have a lot of influence and power, because again, you are ultimately protecting the ruling elites. And I think people assume that the ruling elites don't want to or don't allow for what we would consider to be dissent, in the sense of like, you know, people challenging. And the dissent is pretty much AOC, right? The quote unquote is, oh, this is bad, but we really just need to build power, such as, like, it's bullshit, because you're still trying to keep people within that particular system. But the reason why AOC or anybody else won't necessarily endorse a Green Party or even really truly want a party where we have more influence and power, multiple parties, is because then you're going against the interests of those elites. If I only have to pay for 2 parties, I damn sure don't want to have to pay for 3 and 4 parties. I'm talking about the people with capital, right? And she knows that. And if you start talking like that, then guess what? AOC will be out and there'll be a new AOC willing to take her place. Right. And that's what I think you'll see. But again, the contradictions are going to continue to be there. And as they grow greater, there's going to be a greater challenge. Right now, we see it just even within the that Green Party stuff sounds pretty good, or at least what they're saying. Rather, whether folks actually get out and vote for them or not, it at least some folks are that seemed pretty good, or I never heard of it talk like that before. And if you're really impressed by Jill Stein, right, there's some folks that are to the left of Jill Stein that maybe even have more of a better analysis of what's going on, and maybe have some greater opportunities for solutions about what we should do to try to mitigate those social problems and how they're impacting us.
Of course, and in fact, in regards to the Green Party, what would you like to see achieved by them? I know that they do have some issues that some people may not agree with, but as far as in the coming few weeks and post November 5th, what would you like to see achieved?
Yeah, so I can't, I'm not a person that is invested in bourgeois electoral politics. I'll just be honest about that. I don't see, not to say that I don't think there's value in far as like them being spaces to bring people together, to talk about certain kind of issues, to develop their kind of awareness and understanding of these particular things. But I don't see us, seizing the means of power just via, a vote or something like that. I just want to make that point clear. And I also say I'm not a Green Party member, and I'm not well versed in everything that they're doing on an organizational level. So I can't make too many deep organizational critiques about the particular party. What I would like to see them do, or what I'm happy to see them do, is to continue to call out the contradictions that exist within the Democratic Party, right? I want you to call out the fact that if you say you believe in climate change and like this is one of the most significant issues, then you should I want them to continue to call out the fact that, for example, the Democratic Party is for fracking and wants to increase it, right? And that the Biden administration has increased fracking significantly. I want them to point out, for example, that the Democratic Party claims that we're the party that believes in science and would be more prepared for a pandemic, right? Well, then talk about the fact to point out the contradiction of the Biden administration continuing Trump's tariffs, right? Which were on medical supplies from China and stuff like that, which makes it harder for us to get, if something was to happen this week or next week, if we wanted to get more face masks, respirators and things of that nature, that's going to be a little bit difficult to do, because now you have a tariffs on medical supplies because you want to, quote unquote, endorse American manufacturing, when we know, again, that this is all about not putting more money in the hands of workers. It's more money put in the hands of particular capitalists who support their particular party, right? So I really want to see the Green Party just continue to call out these type of contradictions, right? And then maybe, put out the plan of like how they want to build the party, a little bit better, because they now have this more national attention on them. I would be interested to see, do they have a Southern strategy or something like that, where they particularly want to focus on a certain kind of area, or, a certain, I know they cover kind of all of the issues and stuff like that, but is there a particular push within the next 3 or 4 years that you really want to, hone in on? Is that in environment? Is that in policing, or whatever those type of things are? But really, again, I just want them to continue to call out the contradictions quite clearly and show folks that there is an analysis that is different than what the major two political parties are offering. And I hope that people do maybe get involved in those kind of things, if nothing else, for them to recognize that, damn, the procedures and things that exist within the government don't make it possible for us to achieve even the things that the Green Party wants to achieve. And hopefully then we can have the real conversations of, well, how do we get to these particular places where we can actually build people's power and use that power to transform our society?
Absolutely. One of the things that I actually would like to also see more of is just hammering home on policy, especially domestic policy. While I do think that it is important that we focus on the foreign policy, which is really what the commander-in-chief's full primary job is, a lot of people are not as attuned to foreign policy as, say, people like you or me might be. And it, having a little bit more stronger focus on domestic policy that you would like to put forth will also help people to realize, this person is not as, they're not like the Democrat and Republican parties. Like, for instance, wanting to cut the military budget by 50%. The Democratic Party doesn't say that. The Republican Party doesn't say that, right? There is a policy where with the banks that are too big to fail, nationalize them. Who else is saying that, right? Who else is talking, like, which party is talking about reparations, lineage-based reparations for American descendants of slavery? The other party's talking about that either. What party's talking about, cutting off the undocumented immigration at the source because of our U.S. foreign policy, and making it so that people don't have to suffer in their own countries just to come here to be discriminated against by our own people. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's these different things. And one more thing that I would like to see is the campaign doesn't end after November 5th, meaning that it shifts from an inside focus to an outside focus. And it's like, okay, we're not running for president, but we are running for revolution. You know what I mean? And so that actually kind of goes into, my next question for you. What should be the next inside and outside? What should be the next strategy, both inside and outside electoral politics, in your opinion?
Yeah. So again, I can't put too much strategy within the inside because I've seen it so many times.
Sure.
Even we can look at some examples like Jackson, Mississippi with Cooperative Jackson, which I think does great work, right? But there have been over time internal struggles about, well, how much have we focused in on working within the electoral system, trying to get certain kind of people elected, and then building on the outside and trying to merge those two worlds. It's quite hard to do. Because again, the contradictions within it are like the structure in itself is made to protect those who benefit from our society. They wrote the rules, they made the rules, right? They constantly change the rules and those kind of things. However, I do think it is a good space inside of it. I would want to see the same things that you're talking about, right? Getting people to understand, well, why is it that we have a military budget the size of it is? Imagine what we could do if we did cut this budget in half, right? Why is it that we have, again, mass immigration going on places, drawing these kind of connections between what happens here domestically and what happens around the globe? I think that these parties do have the infrastructure set up in such a way, like the Green Party, to have these conversations and bring people in to talk about these type of things. And from there, you may develop some new strategies that may be transformative or powerful or stuff like that, particularly on maybe the local level, if you were able to capture a strong amount of power at a local level, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that maybe capturing, I guess my answer is for folks who do want to work on it is really how do we capture folks, power on the local level, and really, again, hone in on a certain kind of campaign or things that we want to accomplish from that. Really outside of it, I think that that's maybe my most important thing is like identifying, again, we have a host of social problems, right? We have a host of issues, not being able to pay your rent, policing, health. I mean, you can run down it. I'm a sociologist that studies inequalities, so my life is literally kind of looking at how these kind of social problems exist. But then now, how do we organize ourselves and build these alternative institutions where people are able to meet their needs outside of these maybe traditional frameworks that we've always had that don't meet their particular needs, right? So I'll give you an example on the front of like policing, right? I think that the folks that do abolitionist work who are trying to, again, mitigate harm in their communities, keep people safe, whether you're dealing with a mental health crisis or not. If you're building an alternative way to, again, address somebody having a crisis in the community that doesn't involve you going through the state, calling some armed stormtrooper out, or even some licensed psychologist on behalf of the state to come out, but rather if you're building the community infrastructure that allows you to kind of, and again, pick up the phone and say, hey, Mr. John is having a crisis down the street. We need to go down there and handle this in a particular type of way, right? That is what I think is most powerful. And you can do that from a host of different issues, whether it's from being able just to provide food. People's program out in Oakland, in the Bay Area, right? I think they're doing a lot of work, again, building these alternative institutions that address people's needs. And I think that that's powerful because some of us, myself included, we can think and see these things in the theoretical sense, right? I can see kind of how our society could look without capitalism being the main way we organize our economy, or even the basic level of liberal democracy, right? How we govern ourselves. I can see outside of that. But a lot of people may not be able to see what that looks like. But if you can give them real concrete examples that show them that, hey, I can put food on my table, feel safe, have a roof over my head, those kind of things, without going through, this kind of traditional way, these methods, then they will be able to see like, damn, there is a way we can organize ourselves different. We can live a different life. And they'd be willing not only to participate in building that, but they would also be willing to fight for that, right? Whether it is within electoral politics, where you want to make sure you have a policy that allows you to continue to do this particular type of program, or fight, that's why I think the build and the fight thing really comes into. You have to give something for people. You have to meet people's needs somehow, right? Yeah. And if you can do that, in a way that feels real and significant to them, then they're going to be willing to fight to keep that and transform that, or even spread that out And I think that that's the most powerful thing. So even if the Green Party could attach themselves to some of maybe even those programs and tie that into a policy standpoint where it could be where you could snatch funds from the state, right, to be able to get some of these things done, I think that that would be powerful. Again, there's contradictions because the state will try to capture that and the elites will try to capture that as well. But again, that's where the fight proportion really comes into.
No, absolutely. I agree, especially being able to use the ideas of what a political campaign is espousing and then going, well, hey, do we actually have to wait for a politician in order to have a nationalized healthcare system, or could we start it ourselves outside of the capitalist system? And it's like, well, look, you have a doctor, you have a nurse, you have a nurse practitioner, you have a tech, and it's like, hey, let's donate some of our time to do things for the community so that they don't have to spend any money on it. And then it grows. You go from one doctor to two doctors, you go from one nurse to three nurses, you go from two techs to four techs, and then next thing you know, you guys start in growing that. It could also be, for instance, trying to give people transportation, right, and helping people out through mutual aid in that way, right? Do you just like driving? We talked about this. Do you know how to bake a pie? There's some people. Look, I like pie. Give me some sweet potato, some cherry, apple, banana cream, chocolate silk. I don't care. My big back stuff. But the thing is that ultimately it's really about community doing what we can for each other. This is why we at RBN, we have chapters so that we can, do more on the ground. Because the thing is, it's like, yes, we have, political campaigns like you have the Green Party, you have the PSL, you have other, third parties as well that are trying to, change things on a institutional level. But at the same time, it's like, okay, but what if those institutions don't work out? We always have to I always say the main thing is organizing outside on the ground. And then, if, you're making it easier for these parties that want to do electoralism, you're actually making it easier for them by doing outside work, because now people are going, well, hey, yeah, these people, they do this on the ground. Imagine if the government can actually do this, So that's honestly where I'm coming at it from. It's trying to change the system from the outside to make third parties easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I think that's viable, if you feel like that's the way to go. I think that just whether your feelings on electoral politics or not, or just in the party organizing, right? I think that so many people get caught up in the fight that they forget the build. And sometimes people get caught up in the build and forget to fight, right? And I think that those things are, if you're able to merge those two together in a real way, it makes both of, very strong. I wanted to shout out, community movement builders down in Atlanta, and they got a couple of other chapters around, really, I think are a great example of what that work looks like. They're fighting, again, for example, against these building of cop cities and stuff like that, and have gone through the traditional channels to do so, but also are building kind of alternative institutions that are helping meet people's needs right there, right? Even in the case of policing, through doing community walks, right? And, watching the police or those kind of things. Again, that's the build and the fight together. I think that really makes that thing quite powerful. I think that, again, but people have to recognize that, at the end of the day, we have to change how power is distributed in our society. And you have to really recognize that, again, those small set of people who control damn near everything, we have to recognize that their influence extends through all these institutions and stuff like that. So anytime that we go through these institutions or inside these institutions, you have to recognize that you're fighting. This institution was essentially established to protect that small set of people, and your job is to snatch power away from that, by any means necessary, to use a Malcolm term for that. Yes. But I think that's the viable way moving forward. And I just, like you said, I think it's important for people to find the lane that they're interested in. You don't have to be like, You don't have to be like, oh, I'm going to tackle policing, healthcare, food insecurity, everything today, right? What is your lane that you're good at, you know, and how do you contribute to that? So if you are a nurse that has a revolutionary mindset, how can I use my set of skills with other folks like you were kind of talking about? How can we use these skills and resources that we have to, again, meet the needs of people in a different way? And is there a way we can institutionalize this looking forward so we can, you know, again, organize our society in such a way that is quite different than what it is right now?
Yeah, and I was thinking about this too. When it comes to, you know, one of the things I want to say was organizing on the ground outside is the most important, right? Electoral politics is a small, tiny piece, you know, but the organizing is the most important. And I think about it like this. If we were to try to come together and try to organize our own government, what department would you be in? Would you be in defense? Would you be in health and human services? Would you be in the interior? Would you be, you know, would you be part of agriculture? What department would you be in? And if that department interests you the most, then that's how you organize on the ground.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah,
So if you want to be in agriculture, do like what Real Orlando and People's Free Kitchen is doing, where they actually have a farm and they're using the produce from the farm that they grow to feed the unhoused in the neighborhoods. If you want to be in the Department of Justice, right, then you focus on watching the police and helping people who are victims of the criminal justice system. So there's many different ways. If you want to do about housing and urban development, then help people with tenant unions, tenant co-ops, and housing, and trying to get people who are homeless off the street. But use your focus in going, we're already in a new government, we just have to organize it. That's how I feel. And so all of us are really in that new government already. We just have to organize ourselves in order to create it, you know, out of the ashes of the empire. So that's how I feel. But yes, so if you can let everybody know what you have going on next, what are you doing? How can people find you and all that other beautiful stuff?
Yeah, you know, the part I hate the most, right?
Oh.
Like, yeah, like no bullshit. Like, I know the folks that probably followed me for years, like, yeah, he don't really do any of that kind of stuff as far as like promoting. You know, I'm what I do is every day I'm in the classroom. I teach sociology at a university level. I'm also working on a lot of research projects. One right now is particularly looking at how mainstream cable news talks about race and racism, right? And really talking about, again, how this political duopoly keeps people entrapped in a way that still reinforces the logics of the empire, even if they're quote unquote liberal, anti-racist, right? Or conservative super racist, right? This dichotomy exists within to keep people still, again, grounded within the empire, not really challenging that. So I'm trying to, you know, produce some more academic work for a living to try to, you know, do that, and then also hopefully transform that into more public-based information for folks, really, to do that type of stuff. You know, I think my biggest plug is to get people to join, you know, organizations around you. So I mentioned a few, you know, People's Program over in Oakland. You know, you have Community Movement Builders that are based in Atlanta, but they have a few chapters around, and several other organizations you'll see me pass on, depending on whatever the issue is. You know, if you follow me at Sankofa Brown on Twitter, or X, excuse me, you know, you can see some of those type of things and what I hope to do. You know, again, just try to use the platform that I have to really highlight the organizations over individuals. That's always going to be my main goal. It's like, what organizations can people plug into, tap into, to be able to do? And I try to use myself as a resource for that, and also try to use myself as a resource as an academic, right? Somebody that does get paid to spend time reading books and going into and drawing out the history of like Black radical organizing and stuff like that. And again, you know, if you're just looking for somebody to talk shit about all of the bad shit that goes on, I mean, I guess I'm that person for you until I get bored with that and lock my page down for another 2 or 3 years and then pop back up, right? Maybe I'm the Jill Stein. Maybe I'm the one that only shows up at election season. And that's fine. I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that award too, right? I'm fine with that. You can put that on me all day. So that's really
Yep.
it for me. If I do extend myself out more to, create a website again that I used to have, or, do more stuff like that. People have been encouraged me to do more public stuff, which I hope to do. And, really, but I struggle with becoming a personality over, again, just really highlighting the organization and what I've been able to at least been blessed by the empire until they fire me to, sustain myself as an intellectual within the academy. But so I don't feel the need to try to grow that any more than what it needs to pay my rent and keep food over my head. So I say all that to say I don't have no websites to offer you, books that are dropping in 2024. If it does drop, you'll see it, and hopefully you get it, more so not to make me money, but to really provide y'all with information and resources. Like you said, it's really about the message, and I'm looking forward to being able to be a part of the conversations that exist there. So that's really where I sit with a lot of that.
Well, you graded some great conversation as well as some inspiring messages. I just want to thank you for coming on and being humble enough to come on my little show, and it means the most to me. So I'm happy to have you, and please do not be a stranger. Please come back on in the next 3 years.
Yes, we'll do, brother. I really appreciated the conversation for sure.
All right. Thanks, everybody. The Angry Sociologist. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. So, of course, I got to change the name and the title. I put socialist, but sociologist. But of course, I don't know. I guess 40 and slip in my head. Somebody who's actually about trying to improve the conditions of the world, whether that's through socialism or sociology. Hey, I'm down with it. It's kind of funny though. I also, if I went to college, I may have actually tried to get into sociology or something like that, a field like that, social sciences. That's just more my speed mentally. That sounds like something that I'd be very interested in. I actually had an interesting conversation with a comrade. Her name is Hillary Agro. She's an anthropologist, and I think she's also in sociology too. But that was a really interesting conversation we had. We had a conversation about mind-altering substances, humans using that throughout the entirety of their history and things like that. This sounds really interesting to me. So, yeah, I can't wait to have him back on. So, with that being said, to everyone, please make sure to give the video a quick like. That helps us out. Thank you very much. And by the way, if you have not, then please sub and share. All right. So with that being said, we're going to go into some of the comments, and then we're going to move on to our next couple of segments too. All right. And we're going to say some hellos too, as well. So we have Ani Shah coming in saying, hello, Jaybe and RBN fam, watching from Uruguay. Solidarity with you all. Solidarity with you in Uruguay. Nice to have you. Jerry Connolly says, good afternoon, Jaybe and comrades. Good to see you. Roger Meadow says, greeting to the angriest of black men on the planet. Give it up to Dr. Umar Johnson. Oh, y'all. Oh, hold up. Wait. It's Jaybe. Look, why y'all keep saying I look like Umar Johnson? Do I really look like Dr. Umar Johnson to you? I asked Sabby about that like a few months ago. Sabby got mad. She got mad. She's like, no, you look way better than Umar Johnson. I was like, okay. Oh, man. Janice Anderson says, hi, all. And she tags all the peeps. All right. Good to see you. Black Una Griffin says, there's many universities that have their courses online for free, including Ivy League uni. You just don't get any credits. I mean, but as long as you get to learn the subject, I think that's pretty cool. I think that's nice. You guys are talking about gardening. I like that. You see, Chicken Pot Pie says, irony is now the American working class can only afford cheap goods from China. We could make our goods here, but unfortunately, The corporate dictators, the corporate parasites, they want things to be made more cheaper in other places. But the funny part is that, yeah, some places are still making, lower cost goods in China, but they're going to other places besides China now too. They're going to places like India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, because ultimately what's going on in China right now is they are actually starting to pay what you consider a living wage in China now. And a lot of the Chinese are now unionizing. So they can't exploit Chinese workers like they used to. So now things are starting to shift to other countries besides China. But yeah, that's the interesting part. Let me see. Bodhisattva says, geographically, Steinware seem to be pretty committed to Michigan. I don't know about the South, but there's long-term ballot issues there. Yeah, and the thing is that here's the problem with the United States. The Electoral College. And so the Electoral College basically makes it so that, certain states are pretty much guaranteed. Like Florida is guaranteed red. New York is guaranteed blue. California is guaranteed blue. Oregon is guaranteed blue. I think Colorado is pretty much guaranteed blue, but the swing states are the ones where people kind of shift between. So, you have Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Nevada a little bit too. So you have these states that kind of shift, right? And so those are really the states that actually choose for the rest of the country, essentially, who's going to be president. And when people go, I don't want New York or California choosing for us who's going to be a president. Okay, but is it fair that Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Arizona and in the other two swing states, is that fair for them to choose who's the president too? Also, states don't choose presidents, people do. Land doesn't choose presidents, people do. So if the majority actually want a specific person, well, that's majority rule. You know what I'm saying? And it's kind of tribalist to say, well, these states have more power. It's like, well, more people should move to there, but not many people are moving to there. Are you making it more, are you making it better or more easily accessible or more beneficial for people to live in those particular places? What are you doing to draw people to your state? But unfortunately, they have to go by the parameters set by the Electoral College, which is why, I know they have a policy where they want to, get rid of the Electoral College, which I think is a great idea because honestly, it should be. In fact, I think it should be really just a whole direct democracy, in many ways. But unfortunately, that's the way the Fig Newton crumbles. So somewhat. Do two more. Let me see. The Alex, vote harder, LOL, vote green, LOL, really people. What we're saying, what I'm saying is that the most important thing is to organize on the ground. And the small thing is really just an aside. If you want to, go for a third party outside of duopoly, then go ahead and vote for them. But ultimately, like, my biggest thing is just get your butt out in the street. And that's pretty much it, and do what you can for your community. Whether you vote or whether you don't vote, get out in the street. That's it. That's pretty much my message. So I hope it comes off, I hope, I made that abundantly clear. Steve said, I studied advanced Spanish in the University of Havana. It was wonderful. That sounds awesome. That would be nice. Zoya says, you can get a free college education in places like Cuba. I know, Zoya. I want to go. I really want to go. I need to get my behind. Look, and it's not that far away from me either. I really want to go to Cuba. Man. Andrea says, I did my bachelor's in sociology, wanted to get a master in anthropology, but I was already $40,000 in loans. Sociology is so interesting and rewarding. Oh, man. Just imagine what we can do with the social sciences once we start to learn more about it. I think that'd be really cool. And yes, Grant said, then swap the electoral college for ranked choice voting. I agree. Let me check the Rockfin and then we'll move. Oh, we got some Rockfin chats. Okay. All right. Let's get into that. Let's get in. Oh, once you dig in. All right. All right. So thank you for the tip. Roger, he says, the reason why Dems are mad that if Green wasn't in a race, they would win is not because they're assuming the Green votes would vote for their candidates. No, they know that they would not. What it is that they want Green voters to stay home and remain invisible. They need left of Dems to stay home so that they can turn out more Democrat loyalists at the polls to GOP. Yep. Speaking of college, I often say make sure to tell Gen Z if they wish to go to college, study abroad for free. I mentioned that last week, Roger. Where were you? I also say encourage them to go to school to learn a trade. However, I get triggered when they say they're going to college to learn political science. I say don't go into depth for something you can learn without college. Okay, first of all, not one day in college, me. People ask me for my political analysis all the time, and I've never spent one day in college. Okay, wrong. I did do a college tour while I was in high school. And here I am in front of you speaking about socio-political issues and geopolitics, and I hadn't spent one day in college, baby. Also, while we're on the subject of trade school, I'm also a trade school graduate. I actually took commercial foods and culinary arts at Career Academy High School, which was located in Mifflin Technical Institute. And I took commercial foods and culinary arts in junior and senior year. I never went to college. And I got it for free. And I was in the industry for 6 years before I got sick and had to go on dialysis. So what Roger just said is very possible because I had classmates that were in plumbing. They did welding, auto tech, auto body, digital publishing. I had classmates that were in paramedic and EMT classes. So yes, what Roger says is very possible. Look, I'll tell you this. If you are Gen Z, and if you have not went to college yet, I don't care if you even went to college already. Have you considered electrician, masonry, carpentry, plumbing, right? Have you considered those? I don't care if you're a female. I didn't ask your gender. Have you considered carpentry, masonry, electrician, right? Have you considered these types of things? Have you gotten your forklift license? I'm just saying, right? Because the thing is like, if you're trying to get an education to help, support yourself, consider a technical school or vocational school education. Number one, it's going to be a whole lot cheaper. Number two, the schooling is going to be a whole lot shorter. And then you can say, I'm this. I'm just saying, but I'm just saying. All right, let's continue. Because I can talk too long. All right, so thank you very much. Yes, and I say don't go into depth for something you can learn without college. I did not take one lick of political science, and here I am. So Roger Meadow says, about the National Popular Interstate Compact, right? Where the Electoral College, it goes with the national popular vote instead of the state popular vote. It goes into effect once enough states that total 270 Electoral College votes sign on. Right now, the total amount of states that signed on is 209. So we need more states that total 61 Electoral College votes to sign on. Interesting. All right. So I will put this in the chat. Agreement among the states to elect the president by national popular vote. Let me see. Let me share the screen really quick. So this is what Roger just sent me. All right. So this is, okay, national popular vote. Okay. It says 43 states, 80% of the U.S. states population will be ignored in the 2024 presidential election. And that's basically what happens. Our voices are ignored. This is why they go to swing states all the time, because ultimately the swing states are the ones that matter more than anything else. Like the swing states actually choose who runs this country, which in my opinion is completely unfair. So when people go, and it's a holdover really from chattel slavery and, and white supremacy. And we don't need that. Hang on. Did it actually? An error occurred. Why is errors occurring? Let me see. Zoya says there's no reason to vote for Greens when it takes minutes. There's no reason to not vote for Greens when it takes minutes, but people allow voting to make them complacent. Our stance is the same as Shama's. Use elections to organize beyond them. People are looking and hearing. Yeah, I agree. And the thing is, it's like, that's why it's important for us to do the organizing work as the paramount thing above all else, because campaigns come and go, but organizing is forever. The more you know. You see what I did there, Zoya? All right, let me check to see if we have any Rumble rants. All right, and then we can move on to our next. All right. Looks like we are good on that. Okay. I'm going to do the next subject that is going to be a heavy subject, because I don't want us to walk away depressed and despondent and, extremely sad. But we have to cover this story. So there was a young man that died. I'll put it that way. Was it murder? Was it foul play? Was he lynched? There is this story that I want to bring up, and I will get into this right now. So this is a good page to follow. They talk about a lot of things in regards to race as well as people who commit sexual assault. It says "See Racists," and their handle is "I Expose Racists and Pedos." It says 21-year-old black male lynched out of Henderson, North Carolina. Javion Magee. Hang on. Let me do this really quick. Sorry. I forgot. So we're going to be talking about lynching in 2024. So what happened to Javion Magee in North Carolina? Let's get into it. So, of course, I'm questioning whether this is actually was it a lynching? Did he harm himself? Let's get into some of the facts here, and then we will sift through this and we can make our own determination. So this is from See Racists. They say 21-year-old black male lynched. Henderson, North Carolina. Javion Magee, 21-year-old black man, was found hanging from a tree in Henderson, North Carolina. Now, first of all, let's go into this. If you are a black person and you know of somebody that was black that was seen hanging from a tree, what does that signal to you? Because to me, when I hear a black person hanging from a tree, the Nina Simone song comes rolling in my head, Strange Fruit. What comes through my head is something that a lot of my ancestors had to suffer, especially during Jim Crow. I don't think, well, this person probably harmed themselves. Nope. Because there's other ways that that person could have done that. Not hanging from a tree. Nope. Let's continue. So Javion, a recent CDL holder, was on a delivery route when his body was discovered without his phone or wallet, yet authorities claim suicide. So it says the truck stop owner states Javion wasn't alone. Henderson, Vance County is also known to be racist and KKK affiliated. Police included allegedly. We'll get into that. We need this story to spread. Why is this story not national news? This is Javion. Okay. So I'm going to go over the actual story in the news, the local news, and then we're going to get, I think it's his cousin that talks about it. So let's get into this. Let's see. Here we go. All right, so here is the story here, and we're just going to read through. It says, black man found dead against a tree with rope around his neck in North Carolina. Not a lynching, the sheriff says, of course. So it says, the investigation into a Chicago man's death in North Carolina continues as questions and rumors surrounding it grow, especially on social media. Javion Magee, a 21-year-old truck driver from the Chicago area, was found dead in a rural area of Vanco Mill Road on Wednesday. Investigators said that he was not far from his truck, leaning with his back against a tree and a rope around his neck. Magee was in Henderson making a delivery to the Walmart distribution center. Magee's family, who lives in Chicago, is upset and demanding answers. They're calling for transparency and more answers from the Vance County Sheriff's Office about what happened. On Friday, Sheriff Curtis R. Brain told ABC 11 his office was conducting a death investigation. Notice it doesn't say murder investigation, it says death investigation. Brain told ABC 11 that there were no signs of foul play in Magee's death. He said Magee went to a nearby Walmart shortly before he died. That's where he is believed to have bought the rope found around his neck. When ABC 11 asked more about that, Brain declined to elaborate. In response to social media rumors, the sheriff continued to reiterate that Magee's death was not a lynching. You know, this kind of reminds me of the death of Noah Bush, where Noah Bush was actually murdered by a 10 and 11-year-old white boys. And the police actually covered up for the white boys that killed Noah Bush. Noah Bush was only 8 years old. He was drowned. I covered that story a few weeks ago. And so it feels like the police once again are covering up for the murder of another Black person. This time it's Javion Magee. Let's continue. I understand there's over 1,000 hits on TikTok accusing the sheriff's office of not being transparent, not providing information to the family, and that is not true. There have been information put out there that there's lynching in Vance County. There's not a lynching in Vance County. The young man was not dangling from a tree. He was not swinging from a tree. The rope was wrapped around his neck. It was not a noose. There was not a knot in the rope. So therefore, it was not a lynching here in Vance County. Here's the thing. Why is he arguing the semantics of what a lynching is? How many times we Black people have seen, for instance, somebody like Philando Castile, who was shot to death by police, and we still call it a lynching? Why is he arguing the semantics of a death that probably was a hate crime? Why? See, this is why we talk about defunding the police on the road to abolition. Because ultimately, they're going to spin things in order to make it seem like, oh, well, because you know why? I'm going to tell you why. Because if this comes out that this man was lynched, do you know how many people are going to descend upon that city, that town? How many people who look like me are going to come there? And they're going to demand justice. And these dudes do not want that. They do not want another George Floyd protest. Especially if it's a smaller town, they don't want it. And so they're trying to quell things. No, it wasn't a lynching. It wasn't a lynching. It was not a lynching. He just had a rope around his neck. It wasn't tied into a knot. Do we look like Boo Boo the Fool to you? He's still dead. Let's continue. Nearly 1,000 miles away, Magee's family wasn't convinced. A lot of this stuff does not pass the smell test, and that's a problem. The entire family is completely mortified, and they are hurt. They are. They have a lot of questions, and they just want to know what happened to their loved one. That was from Candace Matthews, who's a family spokesperson. Says Khalil Gay, who lives in Henderson, said, I mean, honestly, I think we have to acknowledge that, number one, we do live in the South, and there's a deeply history of racism and racist acts. And so people are obviously concerned about that. No shit, Sherlock. Magee's family has been sent to the medical examiner for Magee's body has been sent to the medical examiner for an autopsy to officially determine the cause of death. So, autopsy results says late Friday, Brame shared new information about Magee's preliminary autopsy. He said the results have been shared with the family. The preliminary results showed no concrete determination of the cause of Magee's death. No concrete determination. Interesting. There were no obvious signs of defensive wounds or scars on his limbs, including arms and legs. The autopsy showed that there were signs of hemorrhaging detected around the soft part of Magee's neck. Brame said that his office was waiting for the toxicology report to come back, which could take a little longer. We're going down every avenue, every aspect of all the information. We're tracking the company to try to get his GPS reading. In addition to calling the State Bureau of Investigation, Brame said that he has also asked the Attorney General's office to assist in the investigation. So that's Javion Magee right there. So, of course, family members are not convinced. So I would like to play this as well. So Javion Magee's family is also speaking on it. And I want to share this as well. So here we go.
Hey, y'all, I would have never thought I had to make this kind of post on my TikTok, but my family desperately needs your help. This is my little cousin, Javion Magee. He's from Chicago, Illinois. He was 21 years old and would have been 22 in a few weeks. He was found hanging from a tree in Henderson, North Carolina yesterday. He drove trucks, so that was his reason for even being out there. The police officers are trying to say that he went to Walmart and purchased the rope and hung himself. We obviously don't believe that, and we are just asking for your help to push his story out there. This isn't covered on any local platforms. No news stations, radio, none of that. So we're trying to push it out there. We really need your help. The police officers in the coroner's office are giving us a hard time, not allowing his mom to identify the body. At one point, they told her she can't identify the body due to COVID. And then the next day, today, they told her the father has to give her permission for that, which he said that he would. She asked if they could send her pictures at least. They told her yes, and then turned around and told her, oh, I don't think that you want to see your son like that.
Hold up. How are you going to deny the mother of the victim to identify the body? Do you see why we say to defund the police? Do you see why? This system is rotten from the ground up. Do you smell that? Yeah, I smell the bullshit too. I smell it. It's strong, very strong. If something happened to me, and my mother had to come down to identify my body, and you're not going to allow her to? Oh, they're playing games with these people. Let's continue. There's more.
Come on. Like, this is just very devastating for my family, and we really need to push this story out there. So if y'all could please repost this video, keep saying his name, Javion Magee, hashtag justice for Javion, and we are going to fight for him, and we are standing behind my cousin 100%, and they're not getting away with this. So please share this video. Thank you.
This is why I'm talking about it. Javion could be my cousin. Javion could have been my little brother. Javion could have been my nephew. Javion is a year older than my own nephew. Javion Could have been my son. Yeah, I'm that old. And yet, he's found hanging from a tree. So this is why we have to fight. This is why we organize. Because it's the system. It's the system. It's not a one-off. It's not just a few bad people. No, no, no. You have to change the system from the ground up. This is why me and Terry were talking about systemic change through organizing. Because in order to get rid of racism, you have to start at the systemic level. That's how you have to do it. Everybody tries to individualize everything. Oh, well, people just need to change themselves. No, 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 no. You got to change that system. So it discourages people from doing these individual things. Homeboy goes into the South to make a delivery, and then he winds up hanging from a tree. Hanging from a tree? That's some BS. So just wanted to put the story out there so that people know what's going on. If you're in North Carolina and if you know some people who may end up, knowing a little bit more about, Javion Magee, then I hope that, you guys are able to, get some information to the family out there. I think that's really important to focus on, because things like this, they keep happening. And, those of us who are Black, especially a lot of us Black males, we're an endangered species in this country, man. Whether they're trying to put us in prison or whether they're trying to kill us. And the thing is, like, solidarity with the people in Palestine and in Gaza, what they're going through. We also have a genocide going on here, and it's been going on for well over 400 years. And it's a genocide either of imprisoning us to get us back into chattel slavery, or is to kill us. And it constantly keeps happening. And we have to stop it. And the only way we can do it is by changing the system from the ground up. Not only to end the genocide here, but the other genocides abroad, including ones in Gaza. We have to change the system. Save ourselves. Thank you very much to everybody who has liked the video already. Appreciate it very much. Thank you for staying with me for this. Hey, Notori. Good to see you. Notori says, people that are born and raised in North Carolina, like me, know that you can't go certain areas when the sun goes down. It's pretty sad because he was in out of town and he didn't know. Is that city, Notori, is that city a sundown town? Hang on. I'm actually curious. Was that a sundown town? That wasn't a sundown town, was it? Henderson, North Carolina. I don't think so. But yeah. It's sad. Lauren says, as a Black mom, it is a point where every time my 30-year-old son goes for a run in his bougie neighborhood. I'm nervous. Scared doesn't describe it adequately. I had to have the talk with my nephew. I think he was about 12, 13, was he about 13, 12 or 13-ish? So when you're white, you have one talk with your boys, right? When you're black, you have two talks. You have the talk, birds and bees, whatever people want to call it, but we also have the talk about how you are out in these streets and how you don't attract attention from the cops. Because even if you're doing something innocent, your black ass is in trouble. And we had to teach them how to act with the cops just so that they come home alive. Especially if you're black and you're tall. Oh gosh. And my nephew's taller than me. And I'm not short. And so, you know, you're in fear. Like, do I fear from like my nieces? Yeah, I fear for my nieces, but I fear the most for my nephews. I fear the most for them. I fear for my brothers. I have two older brothers. I still in fear for them. We're all in our 40s. And that don't mean a damn thing. So it just, what do you do? Who do you call when the police are the ones that are the most dangerous for you? Who do you call? Who helped you? You know what I mean? And you know what, Miss Lauren? I wish you didn't have to. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wish we didn't have to. And the funny thing is, a lot of people talk about, oh, well, we need to have common sense gun control. And I'm like, well, I'm somewhat in favor for that. I'm like, first we got to get common sense gun control on these police officers first. We got to end this qualified immunity for these cops first. You guys want us to save the lives of these kids, but the thing is like, we're, over 1,000 people a year are being murdered by cops. We're being murdered unarmed. We can't even hold a pot of water without getting our faces blown in. Like, what? Or if it doesn't happen by the hands of the cop, then guess who's covering it up? The cops. Like what they did, like what those two boys did to Noah Bush. Being angry and black is actually appropriate. I try to be a happy person all the time. I try to be bubbly and happy. But there's times I want to scream. I want to rage out. I want to go ape shit. It's just true. And I'm being very calm right now to prevent myself from screaming and blowing out my microphone. And if you know that the police is this bad, don't come to me and go, oh, well, it happens to white people too. That's a part of the problem. If it's happening to white people too, then why aren't you marching? Why aren't you getting out into these streets and trying to defund the police in your neighborhood? If it's happening in Appalachia, y'all need to defund the police in Appalachia too. They're building cop cities, and it's not limited to Republicans. It's Democrats too. Anyway, I'm rambling, but stuff like this really riles me up because I am. The verdict of Noah Bush. I think his mom is in jail. Not Noah Bush's mom. I'm sorry. One of the boys who murdered him. I think the mother's in jail. And the boys are in juvie. But I think it was. I think they took 50 days, something like that. They took a long time for it to come out that the boys actually did it. The police just ruled it as a suicide. And somebody like Noah Bush, who didn't know how to swim, he would never go near a body of water like that. And then, suddenly drown out of nowhere. Devin, you talking about Trayvon Martin? His murderer was I forgot that asshole's name. Ghost Ship says, newsflash, white kids are told to fear the police as well. It's just common sense. Cops are psycho, but it's true that cops will target black more often. No argument there. Fear is the whole point. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know not one white person that's actually scared of cops. Like, if they're doing something wrong, then yeah, they're in fear of the consequences. But I don't know one white person that's actually legitimately scared of police. If you are a white person and you're scared of the police, you'll be the first person I actually met. But I've never actually met a white person that's legitimately just scared of police. Not saying it doesn't happen, but I just don't know of it. Mouse says, I live in a small rural town and a black family moved in and I had known for a previous town. Their house burned down that night. It was a huge wake-up call for me. Yeah. Janice Anderson said, campaigns come and go, but organizing is forever. Should be on your merch. Love should. Oh, thank you. Thank you. That just came out the top of my head. I appreciate it. All right. So I have white people in my family. True story. Yeah. I have white people in my family. So yeah. Chima says white people in the U.S. believe that the police are there to put black people in line. Oof. Tim says, I look different and I am afraid of cops mostly because of what they might do to my friends. Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Tim. Let me check the Rockman chat. Oh, we're caught up on there. Checking for Rumble rants. All right, looks like we're good there. All right. All right, so we're going to go on to our next subject, our next segment. We're going to talk about Lindsey Graham, Lousy Lindsey, I like to call him. And we all know he's corrupt, but we're going to share just how corrupt Lindsey Graham is. And one of the things I want to do is I actually want to share a video. And this will give us just a little bit of a synopsis as to what, the systems of how corruption actually happens in this country. So let's talk about how to bribe a politician, y'all. Let's get into it.
So you want to bribe a U.S. politician? Sorry, that's against the rules. So let's break the rules. And if we're going to break the rules, you need to know them. Bribery of a politician is illegal, or at least our legal system thinks it should be. There's 3 major court decisions that built up to the loophole we're going to use. Because a mistake was made along the way that legalized the bribery of any U.S. politician. Now, in a perfect crime-ridden world, we could just give money directly to politicians in exchange for something. Quid pro quo. But our first court decision in 1976 prevents that. Buckley versus Vallejo. The Supreme Court rules that it is constitutional to limit donations to political campaigns. Because if you can't give $100,000 to a candidate, and you're limited to something like $3,000, that makes it very unlikely the candidate will do something for you. We've got senators accepting gold bars out here. Good luck bribing someone for $3,000. The limit also applies to political action committees, PACs, which take donations, then give the money to candidates. You, as of right now, can only donate $5,000 to a PAC per election cycle. But you're a millionaire, and you're looking to bribe someone. So 5K is just not going to cut it. 2010, Citizens United versus the FEC. The Supreme Court rules that as long as a corporation doesn't coordinate with candidates, there's no possibility of them corrupting candidates.
I want you to keep that part in mind. As long as they don't coordinate with candidates, then there's no possibility of corrupting candidates. Oh, my goodness. Keep that in mind, okay? All right. Let's finish it up.
That limiting the spending of a corporation to advocate for or against any political candidate is an infringement on free speech. The free speech of the corporation, of course. This overruled the 1990 Supreme Court decision that said it was constitutional to limit corporations' spending on elections, because if corporations could spend as much as they want to promote candidates, it would distort the political process. That's what the old one said. Thank God we fixed that, right? So now, corporations can spend as much as they like to help out a politician's campaign as long as they're not coordinating. But you want to bribe a politician, and you still can't donate any more than $5,000 to a PAC. Those limits are still there. So we need our third court case, speechnow.org versus the FEC, also in 2010, almost immediately after Citizens United, with Citizens United ruling that independent expenditures by corporations have no risk of corrupting an election. Then neither do donations to those corporations. That's the logic. This is where the mistake was made. And if your donation has no risk of corruption, no risk of quid pro quo, then Buckley doesn't apply anymore. It's unconstitutional to stop you from donating as much money as you want to a corporation, and it's unconstitutional to stop a corporation from spending that money on their own. Important note, this wasn't a Supreme Court ruling. It never reached the Supreme Court because the Attorney General didn't think it would be important. So, if you set up a political action committee, but it doesn't coordinate with any campaign, any candidate, people can donate as much as they want. Those PACs are called super PACs. Try to pause here and figure out how you'd bribe a politician with these tools. Because now it's easy. All you need to do is promise that politician you'll donate $100,000, maybe $1 million. just not to them. You'll donate it to the super PAC that's running ads to advocate for them. All they have to do in exchange is give you a favor once they're elected. You know, something for something. And
so essentially, they just do it on your behalf without actually being attached to you. So that is basically how it works.
because the courts have declared that this could never, ever possibly cause corruption, you're in the clear. That is how our elections function, and have been since 2010. Now, to any normal person, that's a clear mistake. Because that's corruption, what we've been doing is corruption. It's bribery. It's what the law intends to prevent. There's no functional difference if the money you donate is going to a PAC or to the campaign. As long as it helps the candidate, you can use that to influence them. Quid pro quo. It's a clear oversight. This is why most of the spending on modern campaigns doesn't come from the campaigns anymore. It comes from super PACs. Super PACs funded by the rich to buy politicians. The solution is putting those donation limits back, and they can be, once the Supreme Court overrules the court that declared these limits unconstitutional. But until that mistake is fixed, this is your up-to-date guide on how to bribe a politician.
So, you understand now, right? Okay, with that being said, there was a story in regards to Lindsey Graham. So Lindsey Graham decided that he wanted to kind of jump over. He wanted to jump over the ability to coordinate with the campaign. So shout out to Roger Meadows for this story. Thank you very much. This is out of Sludge. That FEC guts anti-corruption law that separates super PACs and candidates. Says super PACs are supposed to be completely independent from candidates, but the FEC just approved a plan to let them collaborate on joint fundraising committees. Says the agency that oversees federal elections and campaign finance laws will allow candidates to jointly fundraise with super PACs, a move that watchdogs say will help special interests exert undue influence in politics. In July, lawyers for Senator Lindsey Graham campaign sent the Federal Election Commission an advisory opinion request to ask if the campaign could participate in joint fundraising committee with the super PAC, where both groups would share data and other information as required under the joint fundraising agreement and applicable FEC reporting regulations, and coordinate scheduling logistics regarding fundraising events. Super PACs, which were created after the Supreme Court's 2011 Citizens United decision, are required under campaign finance laws to operate independently from candidate campaigns. Also known as independent expenditure-only committees, super PACs are allowed to raise and spend unlimited sums of money, and it's common for them to receive multi-million-dollar contributions from individuals, businesses, and nonprofits, preventing them from coordinating with campaigns, which only takes donations of up to $3,300 from individual per election. It is a way to stop big donors from effectively circumventing campaign contribution limits and potentially corrupting politicians. Last Thursday, the FEC approved Graham's campaign request to add a super PAC to its joint fundraising committee because it said the campaign attested in its proposal that it would not engage in financial transactions that violate campaign contribution limits. It would not coordinate with the super PAC. Do y'all believe this? We promise that we won't do anything wrong. Oh, please, FEC, we promise to be good. Just allow, that's like a little kid saying that they won't run outside into the rain and get wet. They just want you to open the door. I promise I won't run outside while they're putting their Nike shoes on, when they're putting on their sneakers on. You know what I'm saying? Goodness gracious. Last week's opinion defied any common sense, meaning of coordination, much less definition spelled out in federal campaign finance laws and the FCC's own regulations. Despite the requester admitting that the joint fundraising venture would involve the campaign and super PAC fundraising through a shared political community, exchanging data and producing communications together, the FEC said no coordination would occur. That's from Shanna Ports from Campaign Legal Center. We will likely start to see the effects of this decision this election cycle, and it will be regular voters whose voices are drowned out by big money in politics who will suffer. Graham's campaign did not state in a request which super PAC it wanted to jointly fundraise with, but it's likely referring to the security of strength, a super PAC tied to the program South Carolina Conservative Action Committee, which that has spent more than $17 million supporting the senator's re-election efforts over the years. Security of Strength's biggest donors have included two dark money nonprofits, the Government Integrity Fund and the American Exceptionalism Institute, as well as wealthy individuals, including Miriam Adelson, who is the wife of Sheldon Adelson, Craig Dukakis, I should say, and Helen Schwab. Senator Graham will be up for re-election in 2026. Though the Graham campaign may become the first campaign to work with a super PAC in a joint fundraising arrangement, many have tested the legal limits over the years with their interaction with super PACs. In 2020, Democratic presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg was a guest at an event hosted by a nonprofit affiliate of a super PAC that was making independent expenditures to support his campaign. That kind of reminds me of, the wine caves. Everybody back in 2020, we were talking about the wine caves. That might have been what it was. You never know, though. Another name we're going to see is earlier this year, super PAC backing the presidential campaign of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. received millions of dollars in what was called bridge funding from the security consultant who was also the Kennedy campaign's largest vendor. Candidates routinely place conspicuous red boxes containing text about their messaging goals in their websites as a way to communicate to super PACs about what kind of language they would like for them to use in ads. So all the people who talked about, RFK Jr., he's going to fight for the people and he's going to fight against big money. Well, this man got super PACs. He ain't fighting for nobody. In fact, he actually joined the duopoly again. He's with Trump. He might as well have gotten with Harris. Same thing. They're both controlled by big money. Funny how people will back somebody like RFK Jr., yet he's backed by big money. Oh, geez Louise. Says the Graham campaign's request said that the senator, his campaign, and any of their agents would not discuss the non-public campaign plans, projects, activities, or needs of Senator Graham or his campaign with any super PAC participating in the joint fundraising committee. So lawyers from the Elias Law Group, working on behalf of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, or the DCCC, and the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee, the DSCC, argued that the request provides no explanation for how a super PAC that is part of the Joint Fundraising Committee would prevent itself from obtaining or using non-public information. So this is going to be interesting. So it says for years, the FEC's 6 commissioners have been deadlocked on their decision making, with the 3 Democrats on the commission and 3 Republicans consistently disagreeing. But that has changed in the past couple of years as Biden nominee Dara Lindenbaum has occasionally sided with Republicans on matters, including on the Graham advisory opinion. Lindenbaum has also joined Republicans on rulings that let candidates raise unlimited amounts of money for ballot measure committees and allow super PACs and outside groups to collaborate with candidates on door-to-door canvassing operations. You gotta love the bipartisanship from both parties, huh? That good old bipartisanship, it comes in at the right times, doesn't it? Makes you think. Oh my goodness. Says joint fundraising committees, increasingly common, can be used to accept large donations. For example, up to $929,600 for the Harris Victory Fund and up to $844,600 for the Trump 47 Committee. 2 of the top raising JFCs this cycle that gets allocated between participating committees, the Harris Victory Fund and the Trump 47 JFCs, each split funds with dozens of state Democratic and Republican parties. So if you look at somebody like Lindsey Graham is literally just trying to essentially get money more directly. Any wonder why we want to walk away from both parties? Any wonder why we say to leave both parties? Because, yeah, the Democrats are saying, oh, this is bad. This is wrong. But it's more like it's the good cop, bad cop. It's like, oh, no, this is wrong. We can't do this. But then they start to do it themselves. It's just like how the Democrats talked about, oh, well, we need to overturn Citizens United. Yet y'all still getting money from big corporations and super PACs. You talk about, oh, we need to get rid of it, but then you guys still participate. That ain't right. Where's the principle? But of course, you and I both know there's no principles. They just say it just so they can look good. That's ultimately how both parties actually work. See, if you're in a party or if you're independent, but you don't take any of these money from these big PACs and super PACs and corporations, then you're grassroots. But then if you're grassroots, you run into the issue of these other parties outspending you and then pushing the candidates out there more, using corporate media in order to push out their ideas more than you, or even giving you any type of attention. The problem is that they don't want to give you any type of attention because the people who are giving the money to these super PACs are also people giving the money to the big corporate media. So that's the thing. So as far as people like Lindsey Graham, we all know he's corrupt, but I also think about this is somebody like Lindsey Graham doesn't actually care if somebody finds this out and goes, oh my God, you're corrupt. It's almost like he's kind of the sacrificial lamb, but he won't be as harmed by this as, say, if somebody like AOC or oh my God, what's his name? Ro Khanna. If Ro Khanna did this, it would be a lot more damaging to him because he's supposed to be progressive and not taking corporate PAC money. But now it gives them the ability to move more in a corporate direction to do something like this. So, you know, unfortunately, that's the point. So yeah, there is more corruption in our system that is coming down the pike, especially from the duopoly. They will be doing this, and look, it's just a matter of time that it's going to happen. It's, you know, already happening with, you know, if it's, you know, it's going to be happening with the Harris campaign, definitely going to happen with the Trump campaign. And then it's going to move on down to other Democrats, Senate Democrats, you know, congressional Democrats. Then it's going to start to go into state parties. That's just basically how it's going to go. So, yeah. So, with that being said, let's go to the chat. Oh, and by the way, can you do that for me? All right. Thank you very much. Let's go into. Oh, here we go. I knew it was coming. I knew it. All right, Roger, what you got for me? Roger says, CBI time. Oh, man. He says, how about a citizen-initiated constitutional amendment saying the existence of super PACs, the operations and money spent running ads everywhere in the state for any race, no matter where they serve in government and no matter who they serve, shall be deemed unconstitutional. Groups can form political action committees to push for issues like ballot measures, make public financing the only option running for office. Yep. And in fact, we actually have actually an amendment coming up, Amendment 6 here in Florida. So a lot of people don't know this, but we actually have public financing of state elections in Florida. But they're trying to overturn that and make it so that there's no public funding for state elections. So voting yes on it would overturn it. And right now what they're trying to do is they're trying to essentially keep it within the duopoly. Because once you get over a certain, I think, threshold of potential voters, then what the state of Florida does is that it allows you to get state funding for, you know, your campaigns. So they don't want that here in Florida. I'd say that I would definitely vote no on Amendment 6 because I want to keep state funding of elections here because, of course, Ron DeSantis is, you know, up for re-election in 2026. And so, you know, of course, the Democrats are going to want to put forth a candidate. They're going to have a candidate, but that candidate is going to be trash compared. And so you need somebody who's going to be outside of duopoly to try to turn Florida, you know, independent. And so, yeah, agreed. Definitely, Roger. My thing is that, you know, we can organize a CBI amendment to make it so that these policies of PACs and super PACs are unconstitutional and are not allowed. So thank you very much for that. 3:12 already? Holy crap. Okay. I gotta get going. I'm always late. So let me go here. Did I miss a super chat? Got somebody spamming the chat like crazy, and it's annoying. It's annoying me. Okay. All right. So Ghost Ship says campaign finance laws are required. The Citizens United ruling doesn't preclude the Congress from regulating campaign spending. Congress refuses to regulate. That's the real problem. We need a law. Let's see. A non-user says, I can see the reason for all the recent realignments, GOP becoming nationalist fascist. DNC has already become imperialist fascist. Yeah. Gregory says, unit party. Absolutely. Let me see. Steve Wilbrand says, stay away from my forehead. Let me see. All right. Anti-colonialist says, workers strike back, RBN, Midwestern Marx, and Carson Blanton after the revolution gives me hope. All right. Let me see. Cristiano Almonte says Florida is about to be underwater in 50. Thinking for me, 50 years should be planned to move to Niagara Falls. You might be right. Lauren says, JB, how do you advise folks to best respond to intellectuals, experts, or learned people when they say if you're not in one of the 6 swing states, your vote is irrelevant? It's relevant, but then it's not relevant. It's kind of weird because the thing is, it's like it is relevant when you start to shift the tide in other states, because then you're no longer guaranteeing a state going towards either duopoly. So here's the thing. If you're in a duopoly, if you're voting in a duopoly, then yeah, your vote is kind of irrelevant if you're in a duopoly, because it's either or. If you're trying to go independent or third party, then it is relevant because then it starts to move the state away out of either red or blue. Now, one thing I will say is also, what's also really important is your voting for ballot initiatives is also extremely important, because those literally affect your daily life. Like, for instance, in 2020, was it 2020 or 2022? 2022, we voted for a $15 an hour minimum wage. No, 2020, we voted for a $15 an hour minimum wage, and it goes up to $15 an hour by 2026. But after 2026, it adjusts according to inflation automatically. So that was one strong thing that we did. Another thing we did in 2018 was we did ballot initiative that actually gave the right to vote back to former felons. We did that here in Florida. Now, Amendment 3 here in Florida is going to be kind of interesting, because that actually does marijuana legalization. I honestly think it's going to pass, because in the years past, we've gotten like 58, 59%, and we needed 60% in order for it to pass. We've already gotten like within an inch of it. And now you have people like Donald Trump saying, well, if that's what people vote for, then that's what the state should have. So Donald Trump has kind of gotten behind Amendment 3, kind of. So if Donald Trump is kind of behind it, then it's surely going to pass. So I'd say by 2025, marijuana will be legal recreationally in 2025. So it's going to be interesting. But this is why I say the ballot measures are very important, and you can actually utilize, if you live in a ballot initiative state, to push for more policies that will actually directly help workers, that will actually directly help us people. And you can also lock out these big corporations from things. Like, for instance, you can do a ballot initiative that locks out corporations from, you can lock them out from, private equity buying up, homes, right? You can lock out these big corporations, or you can do things like you give them the right to accept the business if they try to sell first. And so you give them that right too for workers, so that they can actually buy the business collectively and operate a worker co-op. So it's the many different things. You can do that to try to push for a state public bank, right? Or for infrastructure projects. So that's one of the things that I think is really important. Thank you very much. Oh, Rockman. All right. Gosh, I am so late. Sorry, Zoya. Okay. Thank you very much. Hang on. Ooh. Sorry about that. Roger says, I got two more lynching stories in the DM. One is from Brandy Weaver, that she was trying to get RBN to cover, and the other was from me regarding Rasheen Carter, that I direct message you if you got time, or at least cover one of them, and I guess do the other one next week or on your show. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do it on my show. I am very late for this meeting. I'm like 20 minutes late, but yeah. And yes, it's right of first offer or right of first refusal. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that. Now, just to address one thing, Ghost Ship said, Cardis aside, police target poor people. Police are more classist and racist. That's why black cops hate on poor black kids. That's not racism, that's classism. It's both. And the thing is that race and class are intrinsically tied. That's why black people are considered to be a lower class as well within this country. So when we talk about police, police are both racist and classist. The police, law enforcement in this country is inherently a white supremacist institution, but it's also an institution that is focused on class. So we cannot really separate the two. I see exactly what you mean, but the thing is that you also have to look at it from the angle of white supremacy, and white supremacy is also a class tool as well to keep us separate. So that's I address that. I say it's both. You can't have one without the other, and so that's how honestly it works. The thing is that look at what happened to, I think it was a football player in Miami. Football player was, arrested and targeted, driving while black. Was that a class issue or was that a race issue? See what I mean? That's why we say it's both. So yes, as far as yeah. But anyways, let's get going. I have to go. I am very late. Nick, Savvy, Rome, please do not kill me. Oh, we do have a Rumble rant. Hold up. Let me get into this. I want to make sure I get everything because I do not want to. I don't like missing people. Because, you know, you guys spend your hard-earned money, and I don't want you guys to, you know, feel overlooked. I've done it enough times at Roger Meadows to know that I learned my lesson. Nocturnal Human, thank you very much for the Rumble rant. Says, hi, JB. I work night shift, so I usually just listen to the replies at night. I was sick last night, so I took the day off. It's rare that I get to see you live, but have a good day. Thank you so very much, Nocturnal Human. And I hope and wish you a speedy and easy recovery. All right. Yes. So that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you so very much for the Angry Sociologist for coming in and joining me for this discussion. I hope to see all of you here next time. I will be live on Tuesday for my channel. So if you guys would like to, you guys can tune in. I'll be doing news stories for that, and most likely covering the lynching that happened that Roger showed me about. So I'll probably be talking about that too. Oh boy. Also, look, please make sure to talk about Javion Magee, you know, say his name and talk about the story. We need this to get out as much as possible. And also leave both parties because they are keen to corruption, and that's the name of the game that they play. And we got to walk away from them. Let's start doing some organizing in these streets because we got to circumvent the politicians anyway, because the politicians they ain't shit. Anywho, thank you very much to everybody for tuning in. And water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Do all the things if you got them. And make sure to vote for those ballot initiatives because that directly affects you. Because where will we be without them? Anywho, shout out to all the patrons on Patreon. Mwah, 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 mwah. Forehead kisses to all. I see you, Steve. I got you right in the forehead. Aha, you know me. Let's go, everybody. Deuces.